Peace to the YouTube fam. It's your boy Ray Imperial, back with a quick edition of the Imperial Diaries. Um, haven't made a video in a while, man. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and you know, my first priority is always my dogs, man. So recently, you know, shortly after I made the last video, had a coccidia outbreak. Started with the pup. He threw up and he had diarrhea and he messed in his cage. And that's completely unlike Solo, right? Solo don't do that. So, you know, seeing that he had messed in his cage and threw up, I wasn't sure whether or not he had gone into his own feces or whatever and that made him throw up. So I wasn't exactly sure what was going on at first, but I knew it had to be something he got into, right? Either something I fed him or something he got into was causing this reaction. And since his feed hadn't really changed, it wasn't nothing, you know, fancy going on with his feed, then, you know, didn't make sense that it was the food. So at any rate, you know, got him cleaned up, got his joint all cleaned up and all of that, and proceeded to take him out. Well, by the time I get back, I think Raina had messed in her cage. That was completely uncharacteristic, you know what I mean? And that was diarrhea. So got her cleaned up, got her out, and long story short, all three of them ended up having accidents, you know what I mean, in their cage. And then when I took them out, their diarrhea was like somebody turned on a fire hose, right? So that being the case, it was definitely a situation where I felt like, you know, it was time, you know, like something is wrong, right? When all three dogs got that severe diarrhea where it's spraying out of them. You know what I mean? It's not even like it's just liquid coming out. It's spraying out, literally spraying out, right? So got a lot going on with the cleanup. The cleanup is bizarre, right? So at the end of the day, I take the dogs, and you know, we immediately, you know, coccidia, giardia, whatever that is, we you know, we investigated all of that, man, and we treated all of that, right? We started with the Corid joint. But if y'all recall, at one point I told y'all, man, that Raina just got her 10-1. So all of this shit kind of collided and hit Raina the hardest out of all three dogs. Once I started giving the Corid treatments and the fenbenzidol treatments, I used the fenbenzidol to treat the giardia. I used the Corid to treat the coccidia, right? And then, you know, because you can never really tell which one it is, you treat both, right? Or that's the common wisdom. Like the common wisdom is to treat both, especially if you ain't got time to go run into the vet and say, hey, which one does this dog have? Which one does that dog have? You know, or does this dog have both? Does this dog have both? You know, you might as well treat all three dogs for both. Anyway, I administered the treatments, 5 days on the Corid, 4 days on the fenbenzidol. Now, I did fenbenzidol for goats. I did 2 to 3, I want to say 200 to 300 milliliters for the fenbenzidol, and let me get back to y'all on them numbers because I can't recall offhand. I'm thinking I'm getting them mixed up. But anyway, 5 days of Corid, 4 days of fenbenzidol. Both males, the pup and the adult male, they bouncing back, stool firming up, you know, they looking good. But through all of this, there was blood in Raina's stool, right? And Raina's stool is the only one that's not really making a comeback. It looked a little bit better after the first day of Corid and fenbenzidol treatments, but wasn't really looking like, you know, like it was really good. You know what I mean? Like you could tell from that first treatment for them, like they was gonna be good. With her, it was always touch and go. To make it worse, at the end of her stool, she was straining and passing blood. You know what I mean? Now that's a red alarm. That's a red alarm for me. Long story short, all of that went into a very serious decision I made not to do this breeding. She continued to have that bleeding from from her intestinal in her diarrhea for a minute. Even after I had administered the treatments, I gave them all a day off, like just a day of fasting, to see what their bodies would do. And she was still passing that blood. So, I kind of went into my bag, man. For me, medicine is nutrition, or nutrition is medicine. So I went into my bag, and start with the coconut oil. You know what I mean? And shout out to dudes like Southern Triple J. You know what I mean? Not too long ago, he made videos about just this type of shit. You know what I mean? So start with some coconut oil and some other ingredients, man, I put together, man. Especially for, to add probiotics and to boost the immune system, so forth and so on. I started feeding that. And, I wouldn't feed nothing but that. You know what I mean? Just made a stew out of it, and that's what she was given with some Dawn. And actually put all three of them on it. You know what I mean? So, she was a little bit slower to bounce back than anybody else, but finally she's back. But the heat cycle has passed, so the breeding did not get done, which I'm fine with. You know what I mean? Me personally, I would rather know that the dog is 100% healthy. If it wasn't something like in her passing blood in her stool, then maybe I'd have tried to work around it, right? If she'd have bounced back at the same rate that the boys bounced back, you know what I mean? But she never quite did. Through the whole thing, she had this real thing with licking her paws. And if you ever pay attention to a dog that's really like almost excessively licking its paws, that's not good grooming. What that is there's something in the dog's internal that's fucking with it. And I believe sometimes it comes out in their pores, in their paws. But whatever it is, when you see a dog doing it, there's something fucking with your dog's gut, right? When you see that excessive licking of the paws. So I just wanted to drop by real quick, man, drop this off, man, and give it up, man, because I know a lot of people, man, was tuning in. I ain't made a video in a minute, but like anybody that know me know, like this, the YouTube thing is secondary extremely for me, man. When you going through something like that, your first instinct, man, is to just get on that thing, man, and be about that and fuck everything else. At least that's my thing. You know what I mean? Like, my dogs is mine. You know what I mean? Like, they me. You understand? So at the end of the day, I can't watch them suffering. I can't watch my baby girl going through some shit, and I can't do nothing for her. Like, that's crazy to me. So the good thing about it was, the parvo shit entered my mind also, but through it all, did nobody have a loss of appetite? Even with her being in heat, bull normally, his appetite normally goes to shit when a female goes into heat around him. He didn't go through that. He was eating just fine. You know what I mean? So everybody was eating. Everybody had appetite. There was no real loss of energy or drive. I wasn't seeing dehydration. So we doubled down on the shit that you really should do every day, man. You really should do every day to protect your dog. I think the other thing that really, really, really exaggerated the problem was the 10-in-1 that I gave Raina. That 10-in-1 is really, really what fucked her up. And me personally, I'm not big on vaccinations. I'm not big on vaccines. But there's something I call breeder paranoia syndrome, right? And when you got a breeding coming up, you start trying to guard against every little thing that could possibly be wrong. Matter of fact, I think in my last video, y'all kind of see me say something that is a very hint at that very syndrome, that breeder paranoia syndrome. She was, I think, it was just like I called her away from something, you know, whatever it was. She had her nose in something. I'm like, get away from me. You know what I mean? That breeder paranoia syndrome, man, had me trying to cover everything. And, you know, now to a certain extent, it's man intervening in what's normally a very natural process. Without that 10 and 1, even if there'd been a coccidia outbreak, we had that thing wrapped up and taken care of before she stopped bleeding, right? So whether it was coccidia or giardia, that shit was pretty much taken care of. So even if the breeding had taken place, right? Even if we had stuck the dogs, there's a chance, you know what I mean, that internally everything ain't 100%, right? To go ahead with that, right, there's also a chance that everything's going to be just fine, because the fetus and all of that don't actually attach to the lining and the uterine wall and all of that and start forming, you know,